Welcome, friends, to the second installment of my childhood trauma series. When I made the first entry last year, I had no idea that it would do as well as it did, and looking back, there's a lot I could have done differently. Regardless, without it, I wouldn't be here now, making this video for your enjoyment. If you haven't seen the previous entry, I suggest you watch it, after this video of course, as it will give you a better idea of what exactly I'm doing here tonight. However, I'll still give you all a quick refresher. Childhood trauma, in the context of this video, is just pieces of media that, for one reason or another, scared me as a kid. As with last time, a lot of what I'm talking about will be pretty general Gen Z childhood trauma, so there's a good chance you'll have all seen this already, but unlike last time, I won't be talking about much that didn't scare me personally. I'm again going to be splitting this video into 3 sections: gaming, movies and TV, and finally, YouTube and the internet. There's a lot to get through, so before we begin, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps me out. But now, without further ado, let's begin our second look into childhood trauma. For most of my childhood, the only games I had any access to were Nintendo games, as the only 2 consoles I had were a Wii and a Super Nintendo, though I did have a few GameCube games as well. So I think it's only fitting to start this segment off by talking about some Nintendo games. And seeing as I started with Mario 64 last time, let's start with Luigi this time. Luigi's Mansion is a game I've wanted to play for a while, but unfortunately I've never gotten the chance to play it for myself. However, despite not playing it, it did still scare me as a kid. Not so much because of the game itself, but because of 2 pieces of content that were never meant to be in the game in the first place. The first is the hanging glitch, where Luigi appears to be hung from the ceiling during the blackout part of the game, leading people to theorize that Luigi was dead the whole time or some dumb shit like that. The second thing, however, isn't present in the game itself. It's part of a scrapped bad ending, where if Luigi failed to save Mario in time, he'd have this depressed look on his face. It's unknown how exactly this would have appeared in the game, as although many people say it's part of the beta as a game over screen, it's nowhere to be found in the beta, or any build of the game for that matter. There is this bad rank image with a similar looking Luigi that can be found in the game's files, but it too remains unused. Now, let's talk about another game over screen that scared me as a kid, though this one is actually in the game. Donkey Kong Country is a series near and dear to my heart. Ever since I first played Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii, I did eventually go back and play the original SNES trilogy, and although I do slightly prefer the Retro Studios Donkey Kong games, the Rare trilogy is still incredible. However, there is one thing about these games that's always unnerved me, that being the game over screens. Now, the first game's game over screen isn't too bad. It just shows a beat up Donkey and Diddy Kong in a black void. It's maybe a bit unnerving because of the graphical style of the game, but again, it's nothing too bad. Donkey Kong Country 2, however, is where the real trauma comes in. Let me first tell you what this screen actually is. It's Diddy and Dixie Kong in a jail cell. Pretty obvious, right? I didn't realize this until a few years ago. I'm dead serious. Up until 2021, maybe, I didn't know what this screen was actually supposed to be. You wanna know what I thought it was as a kid? Diddy and Dixie Kong in an oven. I don't know how. My only guess is because the screen turns red at the end, which I guess child me interpreted as the oven turning on. But still, this is like so clearly a jail cell, As you'll see throughout this video, I was a very stupid kid. Finally, we have Donkey Kong Country 3. Something about this one has always just felt off to me. The door creaking, the music box, and the general look of the screen itself makes it weirdly unnerving. And I don't even know what this one is supposed to represent. The first one is clearly the Kongs being too beat up to continue, and the second is probably K. Rool throwing the Kongs in jail. But this? Why the hell are Dixie and Kiddy Kong in a crib? Does K. Rool have a baby jail laying around or something? I don't know, man. This one genuinely confuses me. But regardless of that, these screens scared me a lot as a kid, to the point where I actively avoided playing these games, since they are quite difficult. So seeing the game over screen isn't too uncommon. Of course, now I've since gone back and played them, but maybe these game over screens are why I preferred Donkey Kong Country Returns as a kid. Let's stick to Nintendo for now, and talk about another game series I've loved ever since I was a kid, Kirby. There's a lot I could talk about here, and I previously went over Ripplestar Catacombs, but I'm going to stick to talking about one boss from Kirby Superstar Ultra, Marx. Marx's design, honestly, wasn't really what scared me, it was more how he was presented. See, Marx is the final boss of Milky Way Wishes, one of the games in Kirby Superstar, and initially he's presented as a normal, whatever the hell he is, who asks Kirby to get the Sun and Moon to stop fighting. He tells Kirby to go find Nova, who can grant wishes. But right as Kirby is about to wish for the Sun and Moon to stop fighting, Marx jumps in and wishes to take over the universe. Kirby then fights him and actually for real kills him, and this still isn't what scared me, as Marx returns as Mark's soul in Kirby Superstar Ultra. This is a much more difficult version of the fights, and Mark's soul has a few new attacks that are unique to him, which are much more unsettling than regular Mark's, such as this one where he splits himself in half. In addition, when defeated, Mark's soul does this. There's a lot more I could talk about when it comes to Kirby, but I think I'll leave it here. There's a few more brief Nintendo related things I want to talk about, so let's go ahead and go over those now. First, the Skyward Sword Guardians. I've only ever experienced these via YouTube osmosis, since these guys appear about halfway through Skyward Sword, and I've only ever gone into the second dungeon of that game, but I digress. Now, the Guardians in this game are pretty similar to the ones present in Breath of the Wild, for one simple reason. They are absolutely goddamn terrifying. They're only present in the Silent Realm Trials, where Link has no weapon, and has to collect sacred tears in order to progress. And while the Guardians start off by being asleep, should they wake up, this song starts playing, and now the Guardians will chase Link until he picks up another sacred tear. Oh, and don't forget, if a Guardian catches up to Link, you die. I'm sure this makes these sections annoying, but like I said, I haven't actually played this part of Skyward Sword, so take that with a grain of salt. Next, I want to talk about the Hell Valley Sky Trees from Super Mario Galaxy 2. Let me tell you a little story. In 2012, when I was about 7 years old, I got a Wii, and one of the first games I ever got for it was Super Mario Galaxy. I absolutely loved this game, and to this day it's probably my favorite Mario game, so imagine how excited I was when I found out there was a sequel. After months of begging my parents, I get Mario Galaxy 2, and immediately begin playing it religiously. Every day, after school I come home and play it. Eventually, I get to Shiverburn Galaxy, a clear sequel to Freeze Flame Galaxy, one of my favorites from the first game. I decide to look around in first person since that's, for some reason, something you can do in the Galaxy games, and I look up at the mountains in the background. There, I see these figures in the distance, and after finishing the level, I decide to boot up YouTube and look up Mario Galaxy 2 Shiverburn guy or something. Eventually, I find some videos about the Easter egg, and find out they're called Hell Valley Sky Trees. And then I probably hear some dumb creepypasta or something, but my point is, the name Hell Valley Sky Trees always stuck out to me as creepy. I mean, the figures themselves are unnerving, but if not for the name, I probably wouldn't have been creeped out by them. I can't even really tell you why the sky trees creep me out so much. They just kind of did. Finally, I want to talk about the NES You Cannot Beat Us ad.
We are Nintendo Ultimate TV Game System. We challenge all players. You cannot beat us.
Now, obviously, I was exposed to this via YouTube, since I wasn't alive when this ad came out. However, I'm still going to include it here because what the actual fuck is this commercial? This is supposed to be an ad to make me want to buy an NES. But all this is doing is making it seem like Nintendo wants to kill me for daring to try to play Mario. So I guess that's pretty in character actually. This actually brings me to another weird ad for a gaming console. Though this one actually came out in my lifetime. The PS3 baby ad is... You know what, just take a look for yourself. I have no idea how this is supposed to make me want to buy a PS3. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually love this ad, despite the fact that it scared me quite a bit as a kid. But I have no idea why it's a PS3 ad. If you replaced the PS3 with like a banana or something, the ad would be the exact same. But that's kind of why I like it. Before we move on, I do want to briefly mention the Mental Wealth PS1 ad. This one never really scared me, and I'm not actually sure if I saw it as a kid, but I think it'd be a shame to not at least mention it here. Now, let's move on and talk about some mature games. I'll be talking about some actual horror games here, but for the most part, these games are horror adjacent at best. What these games all have in common, though, is that I was probably exposed to them when I was too young. Let's start with another short one. Yume Nikki. I recently made an entire video about Yume Nikki, and I highly recommend you check it out after this video. But in that video, I went over Uboa, and how, as a kid, he freaked me the fuck out. I won't repeat myself too much here, but in that segment I talked about how I found out about Yume Nikki via a video about Uboa. Though at the time, I couldn't remember what the video was. Well, thanks to these two lovely comments, I think I found it. The video in question was Top 10 Scariest Enemies in Video Games by Peanut Butter Gamer, and it's through this video that I was exposed to Uboa, who, as I said in the Yume Nikki video, freaked me out, both because of his design and the nature in which he appears, being a sudden, random appearance that locks the player in a room until he's interacted with. If you want to hear more about Yume Nikki and Uboa, I highly recommend you check out my video on Yume Nikki. But enough self-promotion. Let's move on to an RPG Maker game I haven't talked about before. Aoni. The blue guy is scary, I don't know what to tell you. Alright, next is Mortal Kombat, which really scared me because... Okay, I'll talk about Aoni more. Aoni is an RPG Maker horror game that I don't know much about, but I do intend on learning more about it and possibly making a video on it. So if you'd be interested in that, please subscribe and maybe even leave a comment. I read every comment, and I take all of your suggestions into consideration. Anyway, like I said, I know next to nothing about Aoni. I just know it's a horror game with a scary blue man. Now yes, the blue man, who I assume is Aoni himself, is a bit silly looking, but this was scary as hell to me when I was a kid, alright? Okay, now with that out of the way, let's talk about... This is going to be a quick one since I don't have much I want to talk about. Starting off, we have the fatalities. specifically from the first 3 games, though looking at them now, they are a bit goofy looking. But as a kid, a lot of these really freaked me out. In particular, Raiden, Kano, and Sub-Zero's fatalities from the original game. I will say, these never really scared me that bad, and I think they would have been a lot less scary to me if the game didn't use digitized sprites, but I digress. Before we move on, I want to talk about one particular Mortal Kombat character that scared me as a kid. Meat. Do I even need to elaborate on this? Finally, let's go over Mortal Kombat 9. This was the first Mortal Kombat game I really saw anything from, though there wasn't anything in particular that scared me much about it. If anything, it was probably more the idea of the game itself than anything in the game, since I knew at the time, which was probably when it came out, that I shouldn't be watching videos about it. But there is a certain guest character in this game that did scare me, for reasons I'll get into later in the movies and TV section. For now though, I want to go over something I touched on last time, though I didn't quite go over everything I wanted to. Silent Hill. I fully intended on covering the monster designs in the last childhood trauma video, but I had to cut that for time. So why not go over that here? There's 3 in particular I want to talk about. Pyramid Head, and the Bubblehead Nurse from Silent Hill 2, and the Twin Victim from Silent Hill 4. Let's start with the Twin Victim, since I have a lot less to say about it. I remember first hearing about this thing in a video that was something like Top 10 Scariest Enemies in Video Games, different from the one I mentioned earlier, and something about the design of it just really freaked me out. Nowadays I can recognize that it's a good monster design, and it doesn't really scare me anymore, which is a trait it shares with the other 2 Silent Hill monsters I want to talk about. Pyramid Head, again, I don't have a ton to say about. I actually think of these 3 monsters, Pyramid Head was probably the least scary to me as a kid, at least design-wise. However, the way in which Pyramid Head is first introduced in Silent Hill 2 terrified me as a kid. Just the idea of an unkillable enemy that you had to hide and run away from, especially with this music. Playing in the background. Yeah, no shit, that scared me when I was but a wee boy. Finally, the Bubblehead Nurse. There's no deeper reason for me being scared of these as a kid. I just thought that design was scary, in no small part because of how they move. Again though, there's not much more to this. Just a scary design. Which, hey, that's what they're going for, so good job, Konami. There's a lot more Silent Hill monsters I could talk about, since like I said in the last video, I've always thought the monster design in these games, at least the first 4, are incredibly well done, but I think I'd like to save that topic for a future video. I have 2 more mature games I'd like to talk about before we go back to talking about sillier stuff, though this one is going to be very brief. Back in the day, I watched a video, what it was specifically isn't important, talking about the Forgotten Crypt in World of Warcraft. This was a scrapped area, which most likely was scrapped due to the room with upside down, submerged corpses. Looking at this again though, I'm not sure why this scared me so much. I remember the corpses being a lot more graphic, being a lot closer to the zombies in Oblivion, and not basically normal looking people. Anyway, I think this only scared me too much because of the mystique of it. If the Forgotten Crypt was in the actual game, I probably wouldn't have thought much of it, but it being scrapped made it so much more mysterious, therefore making it far creepier than it would be otherwise. I want to talk about Conquer. Conquer's Bad Fur Day is a game developed by Rare, and despite the family-friendly appearance of the characters, the game is anything but. All that matters for the purpose of this video, though, is the zombies. If you saw the last video, you already know about my childhood fear of zombies, so me being scared of these zombies shouldn't be a shock. That's all I have to say about Conquer, though. So with that said, let's move on to the last few games I want to talk about. I'm going to rapid fire through these because I don't have much to say about them. So, starting off, we have the Slender Goat from Goat Simulator. This is an NPC you can find in an already pretty spooky cemetery, and I mean, just look at it. Sure, yeah, it does look a bit goofy, but seeing this in a dark, ominous cemetery area when I was 8 years old, just trying to unlock the Minecraft goat, yeah, this was not a fun thing to experience. Speaking of Minecraft, we have the Minecraft music discs 11 and 13. I genuinely don't know how I didn't include these in the last one, since these used to scare me so bad as a kid, and even to this day, I still find them quite unnerving. I mean, that's obviously the point. They're meant to be weird, creepy discs, but still, not an enjoyable listen. I'd rather listen to Stall, and that shit sucks, I fucking hate Stall! On to the last three. These ones are a bit weird because I'm going to be talking about fan content rather than actual content from games I played as a kid. First, the amalgamates from Undertale. Now, I know I just said I was talking about fan content. Don't worry, we'll get there. If you haven't played the pacifist route of Undertale, the amalgamates are a group of monsters found in the True Lab, a hidden area only found in the aforementioned pacifist route, and they take the forms of fused, melting monsters, and appear to be somewhat ghost-like. I say appear to be because it is, from what I remember, a bit unclear what they actually are, but my point is they're supposed to be a bit spooky. Anyway, what I really want to talk about here is Six Bones. This is an Undertale alternate universe, or AU, where Sans and Papyrus become one of the amalgamates because Papyrus dies. I will say though, this is one that was never really that scary to me, more sad than anything. I don't know. This is a different kind of childhood trauma, I feel. I cannot say the same for the last two subjects, and this next one is going to require a bit of explaining. If you've been on YouTube for a while, chances are you've stumbled across Siva Gunner at least once. Maybe you found the channel on purpose, maybe you fell for the bait and switch and thought one of their videos was an actual rip of video game music, but chances are you didn't find them through Puzzle Room. This is another one that, honestly, wasn't very scary to me. This barely even counts as childhood trauma, honestly, because I think I was maybe 12 when I heard about it, but to be honest, I just want to talk about this and I don't think I'll get the chance to again. So back in 2016, the Siva Gunner channel uploaded a video titled Puzzle Room Kirby Planet Robobot. One thing to note about Siva Gunner is that one of the main jokes of the channel was using the Flintstones theme song as a reference to Seven Granddad, a bootleg Mario game played on stream by Vinesauce Joel. Puzzle Room references another bootleg game Joel played, that being a Felix the Cat game which used an image of Felix the Cat ripping his face off in the game over screen. Honestly, this in and of itself could fit in the video, but I don't want to risk getting this video demonetized or age restricted by showing the image, so I'm going to leave that there. You can find the image pretty easily, but fair warning, it is a bit graphic. Anyway, instead of using an image of, I don't know, Kirby ripping his face off, the creator of this rip decided to throw in a picture of a baby with Harlequin ichthyosis, and if you don't know what that is, please do not look it up. You will see extremely graphic imagery, so seriously, do not look that up. Basically, it's a skin condition that causes the baby's skin to be white, hard plates, with red cracks separating them. Yeah, so obviously people got mad about this. The video was eventually deleted, and the creator was kicked from the Siva Gunner channel, but none of that is important. All that matters is that I saw a video about this incident maybe a year after it happened, and in my infinite, about 12-year-old wisdom, I looked up what a Harlequin baby was, which was a very bad idea. Don't do that. Okay, this last one is going to be quick for real, but it's also one of the most disturbing. Sonic Dreams Collection is a game about Sonic fans and their various quirks. It's comprised of 4 minigames, and honestly, I could talk about all of them here, but I think I'll stick to just one for now, that being Sonic Movie Maker. This game starts off simple enough, as the player can make what boils down to Sonic machinimas, but as it continues, the levels become increasingly more adult. What I'm trying to say is they become the creation of the average DeviantArt user. There's one level in particular, where the player is inside of Rouge the Bat. Yes, I said inside, and you can find Big just sitting there. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, this scared the hell out of me as a kid. I was a big Sonic fan as a kid, and although I did, and still do, generally find Sonic Dreams Collection to be funny, this specific part is quite unnerving. But with that, I think it's about time we move on from the world of games and talk about some movies. Let's start off with some actual horror movies. Now, if you saw the last video, you'll know that I only actually started watching horror movies last year. Over the past year, I've more and more found what kind of horror movies I like. And let me tell you, slasher movies are kinda lame. I don't know, maybe I've just seen bad ones, but I really just don't think they're for me. But as a kid, the mere concept of these films was enough to terrify me, and none did that more than Nightmare on Elm Street. I actually still haven't seen this one, and I would not be surprised if it's partially because of Freddy Krueger. Remember in the Mortal Kombat section, how I said there was a guest character I'd get back to later? Well, that guest was Freddy Krueger. I don't know if Mortal Kombat was my first exposure to him, but regardless, I saw a few scenes from Nightmare on Elm Street when I was a kid, and they scared the shit out of me. Which, yes, obviously that's the point, but I was also like 8 years old or something, and I really shouldn't have been seeing that. Anyway, as much as I wish I had more to say about this one, I really don't. I just saw some scenes I shouldn't have. This is the case with another iconic slasher movie series, Friday the 13th. Jason Voorhees has always been less scary to me as a character, but that doesn't mean he didn't scare me. I mean, even now, I still think the ending of the first movie, where Jason pops out of the lake to drown someone, is a pretty great scene, though, unfortunately, I don't think I'd like the movie it's from. Speaking of movies I don't like, Alien. Look, I get it. I get why Alien is a classic. I don't think it's a bad movie by any stretch, and I think visually it's amazing, but I just don't think it works for me. So much of it relies on the audience not knowing what a xenomorph is, but who doesn't know what a xenomorph is in this day and age? Anyway, again, Alien is fine. I don't think it's bad, and as proof of that, I want to talk about the chestburster scene. This scene terrified me as a kid, and when I watched the movie for the first time last year, it still did. I knew it was coming, but the tension of not knowing when it would happen, despite knowing it was going to, was still incredibly well done. I just wish I felt the same about the rest of the movie. 2 more horror movies I want to talk about, and I have barely anything to say about them. First, Final Destination. I've always been an anxious person, and the idea of these movies being that you can just die like out of nowhere in some elaborate Rube Goldberg machine of death, yeah, that was not a fun thought to me as a kid. Next, I want to talk about The Ring, specifically the American version. It wasn't until embarrassingly recently that I found out The Ring is a remake of the Japanese Ring, and obviously what scared me here was the dying in 7 days after watching a video. So much, in fact, that as a kid, I don't know why, but I thought I was going to die in 7 days because of something. But when I was going to sleep one night, the word 7D flashed in my mind, and I, in my infinite child wisdom, took it as a sign that I was going to die in 7 days. I'm going to be fully honest, I genuinely do not know why that happened, but I thought it was a funny story, so I wanted to share it. Let's move on to TV now, though I don't have much I want to talk about here. First, Arnold killing himself in space. Yeah, I don't know, man, this one just freaked me out when I was like 5. Okay, I have a bit more to say about this next one. I've always enjoyed anime, which I know makes me cringe, but like, are you really surprised I'm cringed? Look at my Twitter profile picture, dude.
Hey, by the way, follow me on Twitter.
But it wasn't always this way. Now, I didn't really know what anime was until I was around 10, when my mom showed me a little show called Puella Magi Madoka Magica. I don't remember why exactly she showed it to me because that show was fucked up, but we didn't make it past episode 3 anyway because this happens. Needless to say, I did not watch the rest of Madoka Magica for a few years after seeing this. Anyway, that's enough cringe weeb shit, let's move on to the real horror, Homer Simpson. Earlier this year, I covered the creepypasta Dead Bart in my classic creepypasta video, and if you've ever seen anything about that story, you've seen this image. This image, despite its association with Dead Bart, is of Homer, and it's actually from a real episode. It comes from the season 4 episode, Brother from the Same Planet, and while Dead Bart completely fails to be scary, honestly, this scene is somewhat unsettling. Like, yeah, it was way scarier to me as a kid, but the visual of Homer's face melting off is still not fun to look at. Despite that though, I never really watched The Simpsons as a kid, though I did see a Treehouse of Horror episode that really scared me, but I think I'll save talking about that for a later date. So for now, let's talk about some other TV moments that scared me as a kid. I have another quick one to start with, that being just the entirety of Flapjack. If you've never seen The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack, you probably don't get why this is here, but something about the show just always made me uncomfortable while watching. Seriously, I don't know what it is since I barely watched it, but the thing is, I barely watched it because it made me uncomfortable. I mean, from what I've seen, it is probably something I'd like now, but I don't know, this show is just seriously off-putting to me as a kid. Also, there was this eyeless cat in one episode and that was pretty freaky. There's 2 more TV-related things I want to talk about, one being more general again, so I'll talk about that first. The SpongeBob close-up scenes. Now, obviously, these are meant to be gross and uncomfortable, but some of these are just straight up nasty, like this one of the Nasty Patty, which I've never been a fan of, and this one, dubbed More Crabs. There's a good chance you've seen More Crabs before, since it was a meme back in the day, but for the longest time I thought that this image was creepy. There's a lot more of these close-ups I could talk about, but we'd be here all day if I kept going, so let's just move on to the last piece of TV-related trauma I want to talk about. The Joy. This is an episode of The Amazing World of Gumball, where everyone turns into zombies because of some sort of happy virus. The infected have giant pupils and barf rainbows, and I remember the episode being genuinely scary to me as a kid. Not scary enough to make me stop watching the show, but I would always hate it when this episode got reran. Alright, this next segment is going to be a bit longer, but it's something I promised I would talk about last time. PSAs. I'm going to kind of rapid fire through these since, honestly, I could make an entire video about these, but I think they fit here well enough. Starting off, we have the infamous WSIB Top Chef PSA. This PSA is about workplace safety and involves a chef talking about how she's going to get in an accident that was entirely preventable. Then she trips and her skin burns off. Yeah, I'm not going to show that. This PSA is one of the only things in this video that you could actually call traumatic, and while watching it again now, it's nowhere near as bad as I remember. This PSA is still horrifying. Next we have this PSA, which I was introduced to via a JonTron video. I'll admit, this PSA is kinda bad, but there's this one specific part which scared me whenever I watched the aforementioned JonTron video. The part where this guy gets turned into a rug. Again, I'm not going to show it, but it's pretty brutal, even if it is a bit poorly done. Let's move on from workplace safety PSAs and talk about some drug PSAs. First, we have two that tormented me back in 2014. Those being the real cost, teeth and skin. These are two similar PSAs which would air as YouTube ads all the time back in 2014, and if my memory serves correctly, they were unskippable. They both involved people buying cigarettes from a convenience store, but not having enough money, requiring them to give up something else. In Teeth, the man buying cigarettes rips his own teeth out, since smoking can cause serious gum disease, making it more likely for you to lose your teeth. And in Skin, the woman takes off a chunk of her skin to buy cigarettes, because smoking causes wrinkles that age you prematurely. Now, whether this is true or not doesn't matter, because the uncomfortable nature of these commercials, plus the ways in which these people go about removing their teeth and skin respectively, it's no wonder these PSAs scared me. It certainly didn't help that, like I said, these PSAs played all the damn time back in the day, meaning I had to watch them over and over again. Next, we have the photograph PSA from Scotland. I don't remember how I came across this one since I'm not Scottish, but regardless, this one scared me a lot as a kid, even though, looking at it now, it's goofy as hell. This one is pretty simple. It's just a photo of a guy who gets progressively more distorted until the end, where he looks like a goddamn ghoul. Again, this one is goofy, but I didn't think it was as a kid. Two left, though. One didn't actually scare me as a kid, but I'd be remiss to not at least mention it. Dumb Ways to Die is an animated PSA from 2012, showing these little bean guys dying in, well, dumb ways. Now, yes, some of these deaths are graphic, and a few of them are honestly a little disturbing, but I don't know, this video never scared me. Maybe it's because of it being animated, maybe it's because of the song, but I always liked this video. Dumb Ways to Die, to me, feels less like a PSA trying to scare children into being safe, and more like one just trying to give a little warning. You know what PSA did scare me as a kid though? The Fragile Childhood Monster PSA. This is a Finnish PSA depicting children near horrific monsters, though the monsters act a lot like their parents would. And that's because they are. That's right. This is a PSA about alcoholic parents, and how kids might see their parents as monsters because they're drunk. Honestly, of all the PSAs I've talked about, this one might be my favorite. Yes, it is more of the scare tactics we saw earlier, but I think it's done in a much more tactical and tasteful way. This isn't a PSA aimed at kids. This is meant for parents. This is meant to be a wake-up call. It's meant to show how if you're drunk, your kid might see you as a terrifying bunny monster. Which brings me to why this scared me as a kid. The monster designs. I do think the practical effects used for all of them look great, and there's some interesting designs here. All in all, I think this is a good, albeit creepy, PSA. With that said, let's talk about the final three movies I want to talk about. These three, okay, well, two of them anyway, are completely innocuous children's movies, but that didn't stop me from being scared of them. I'll start with, by far, the silliest one. So, as a toddler, I had a group of DVDs called Baby Einstein. These were videos, I guess, that were aimed at babies, usually containing baby sensory visuals with some classical music. Some of my earliest memories involve these videos, and one moment in particular always sticks in my mind, that being the dragon jump scare. In Baby Mozart, there's a dragon puppet that appears periodically. While, for the most part, he gets around to goofy antics, there's one scene that, for whatever reason, terrified me. And I mean terrified me as a kid. I think it's best if I just show it to you. Okay, look, in my defense, I was literally like 2 years old when this scared me. Sure, for a few years afterwards, whenever I would rewatch it, my parents would have to skip this part or cover my eyes when it happened because I was still scared of it. But like, I was really little. I don't know. This one still gets me a little bit. When I was writing the script, I rewatched the clip I just showed you, and even though I knew what it was and what was coming, it still made me jump ever so slightly. Obviously, I can recognize that this isn't scary, and really it isn't, but I think because of just how young I was when I saw this, it's going to always get a little reaction out of me. Now let's move on to some actual movies. Next up, we have Coraline. I'm going to say right now, I love this movie. It scared me so bad that I didn't even finish watching it back when I first saw it, but now, I love it. Honestly, I'm not sure why it scared me so much when I had no problem watching A Nightmare Before Christmas, which, while that movie has less creepy moments, they're still very similar movies. If I had to guess, I probably got to a scene with the other mother as a wee child, but then got so scared I had to turn the movie off. But I don't remember. I do remember, though, being unnerved by the scene where Coraline crawls to the other world, which is weird because I don't have claustrophobia. Anyway, Coraline is a great movie, and I highly recommend it, so clearly I wasn't too scared by it as a kid. I cannot say the same about the last movie I want to talk about. This is another one that was maybe actually traumatizing, since to this day I have not, and likely will not ever watch this movie. That movie is Watership Down. Okay, to be fair, the reason why I still haven't watched Watership Down is because it doesn't really interest me at all. But I digress. Watership Down is an animated movie about rabbits, and despite technically being a kids' movie, it contains many scenes that could be disturbing to young kids. There's one scene in particular that scared me a lot as a kid, that being the suffocation scene, where a group of rabbits get trapped underground and suffocate to death. I remember hearing about this scene all the time in videos about the scariest scenes in kids' movies, and honestly, this scene is still pretty fucked up now, even as an adult. From what I understand, the entirety of Watership Down is like this. Despite being a movie meant for kids, it consistently has disturbing scenes like this in order to educate children about how people mistreat animals, which isn't a bad message at all. While I could talk at length about more movies and TV shows that scared me as a kid, honestly, there aren't many more interesting ones I could talk about. So, how about we move on to talking about some stuff on YouTube and the internet that scared me. Unlike last time, I'm gonna be mostly talking about YouTube videos, though there will be a few non-YouTube entries as well. With all that said, let's get right into it. I want to start off by talking about 3 videos that I fully intended on talking about last time, but somehow I missed them. First up, we have I Feel Fantastic. Okay, before I show the video, I'm just gonna give a little warning, because I personally know some people that are still a little creeped out by this video. If you don't want to see I Feel Fantastic, skip to this timestamp. Okay, back to the video. God, this video is weird. I want to get this out of the way now. I Feel Fantastic was not created by a serial killer. I don't know how or why this rumor started, but it's just that, a rumor. The video itself is innocent. It's nothing more than a video made by a guy who wanted to show his singing robot. It just so happens that the robot is creepy as hell. Now, I wanted to talk about I Feel Fantastic because this video used to be terrifying to me as a kid, partially due to the serial killer rumor, and to this day, I still find the video to be highly uncomfortable. That's mostly due to the uncanny valley aspect of both the robot herself and the music. The erratic nature of the music honestly makes me think this video is creepy on purpose, but I don't think it is. I think, unfortunately, this was a real, sincere attempt at making a singing android, and it turned out creepy as hell. Moving on from I Feel Fantastic,
Say that again?
I want to talk about another video that wasn't meant to be creepy, and yet it unfortunately is. Obey the Walrus. Okay, well, Obey the Walrus is supposed to be creepy. However, the video it uses in its footage is not. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Obey the Walrus, or Obedece a la Morsa, is... honestly, I don't know how to describe it. Just take a look for yourself.
La pequeña araña en un tubo se subió.
So, what I just showed you is basically the entire video, though there is a picture of a walrus at the end, hence the name Obey the Walrus. This footage used for the majority of the video is from the film The Goddess Bunny, a documentary about the titular Goddess Bunny, otherwise known as Sandy Crisp. Crisp was a transgender woman and drag queen who had polio, and all she ever wanted to do was entertain. I say was because she unfortunately passed away in 2021 due to COVID, and I think that it's truly unfortunate that the biggest part of her legacy is a video she had no involvement with that paints her in a negative light. Obey the Walrus is meant to be creepy. You're meant to look at this video of a woman with polio tap dancing and go, "Wow, that sure is spooky," and I think that's incredibly disrespectful. However, I can't say that it didn't work, because I did find this video scary as a kid. I don't really find it scary anymore, but if you still find it scary, that's okay. Yes, the presentation of Obey the Walrus is a bit disrespectful, but that doesn't mean you can't like it, or that you can't find it scary. For the final of these 3 videos, I want to talk about one I actually really like. There Is Nothing. This is a short film where a pale woman says some stuff backwards, then falls face first into a bowl. The camera lingers on this for a few seconds, with the only movement being the fire in the background. As the camera zooms back in, we get the audio reversed.
There is nothing.
In my opinion, There Is Nothing is one of the best horror short films on YouTube, with its simplicity being a large factor as to why. It's only a minute long, though it does perfectly loop, and in that single minute, it nails the creepy atmosphere it's going for. Now, of course, as a kid this video scared me quite a bit. I mean, I still find it creepy now, but I can actually appreciate it for what it is. If you haven't seen There Is Nothing before, check it out. It's a great piece of online horror, and like I said, it's only a minute long. Now with those 3 out of the way, let's talk about some more classic weird and creepy YouTube videos. I'll start with one that didn't actually scare me personally, but I know it did scare a lot of people, so I figured I'd talk about it anyway. I totally get why this video would scare people, given the graphic imagery, but I don't know. I've always found this one wholesome, I guess. I don't really know why or how to explain it, but this video is somewhat comforting to me, since even though this teddy bear has some seriously fucked up organs, everything is okay in the end. I don't know. Again, I understand kids being scared by this one, but me personally, I was never scared by it. You know what I was scared of though? I was scared by this.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Absorbent and yellow and porous is he.
Okay, honestly, this one is cheating a little bit. With these childhood trauma videos, I generally don't include anything from after I was 12. But this is going to be one of the few exceptions because I might have seen this one when I was a kid. Now, the only reason why I say might is because this video was uploaded in 2016, and while that is barely within the after I was 12 age limit, I don't remember when I saw it. It certainly doesn't help that I remember this video being older, and going off of the description, it is. Anyway, SpongeBob Cave Eaten Alive is definitely supposed to be an unsettling video, and it is, so that's why it's here. To this day, it still creeps me out a little bit, and I think it's mostly due to the background music. That's about all I have to say about it though, since, again, this is a purposefully creepy video. On the topic of purposefully creepy videos, I have a few I want to talk about. First, Poochie and Pansy. This almost made it into my ARG video, but I decided against including it because I didn't want to be too negative. I'm gonna say it now, Poochie and Pansy sucks. It's one of the most try-hard ARGs I've seen, up there with Cave of Shadows, and most of the horror it contains is just jump scares and vaguely creepy footage. Hell, most of the jump scares don't even use original images. One of them straight up just uses a smile dog. I digress. Poochie and Pansy, despite being terrible, it did scare me a lot as a kid. I never watched the series for myself until recently, but I did watch a video covering the series back in the day, and whatever clips were played in that were enough to scare me. I'll be honest, it was entirely the jump scares that scared me, but this video is about dumb stuff anyway, so whatever. From one shitty horror video to another, next we have Tea Time. This is a horror short film where an old lady sets up tea for her and her husband, except it turns out her husband's dead in the bathtub, and also her cat's dead and she probably killed them but forgot because she got dementia. Okay, I am making it sound worse than it is. Tea Time isn't that bad. I just don't like it. My dislike of it has nothing to do with it scaring me as a kid, which I won't elaborate on because it's a horror short. It's meant to be scary. I just think it's bad. Actually, I will elaborate on my past experience with this short, because one thing that especially scared me was the dead cat. It's so obviously fake, and yet it still creeped me out. Honestly, it looking so fake and shitty probably made it more creepy to me as a kid. But regardless, not a big fan of this one. Okay, let's take a little detour and talk about some non-YouTube content. This is YouTube and the internet after all. I'll get back to talking about some scary videos soon, but for now, I want to return to a topic from the last video. Screamers. Specifically, I want to talk about a screamer I completely forgot about until one of my friends brought it up sometime last year. The Bionicle Screamer. Yes, that's right. There's an officially licensed Bionicle Screamer. Now, as a kid, I absolutely loved Bionicle. In fact, a large amount of the time I spent on YouTube, back when I was little, was devoted to watching Bionicle videos. And, aside from that, I played as many Bionicle games as I could get my hands on. The Motonui Online game, Bionicle Heroes, the numerous Flash games, and draw Baraka. This is one I remember only playing once, since, as I've already spoiled, it's actually a screamer. Your goal is to draw the outline of one of the Baraka, the main villains of the 2006 wave of Bionicle sets, and after clicking on a certain one of the dots, an image of either the red or blue Baraka will flash on screen with a roaring noise. Seeing these again now, these are honestly kind of funny. The roaring noise is pretty silly, and the music that plays after the jump scare is... well, it's certainly something, but I need you to understand how devastating this was to me as a kid. I knew what screamers were at this point, and I had already experienced a few for myself. So to see a Bionicle screamer, to have my beloved Bionicle betray me like this, it was the biggest betrayal of my life. Anyway, let's talk about boobs now. I'm not sure how much of this I can show, but last time I talked about the DYE fantasy music video, and that got me thinking about other music videos that scared me as a kid. While a few came to mind, I have only one I want to talk about, that being Me Me Me. See, this one is scary because it has boob in it. Okay, but seriously, since I can't really show any of this, I'm gonna have to describe why exactly this freaked me out. So basically the whole music video is about the average anime fan, except his waifu becomes real and kills him. This is probably supposed to be a metaphor for a certain kind of addiction, but that all kind of flew over my head when I saw this as a kid because all the blood and gore scared me so much that I ignored the rest. Which is honestly a shame because that's not really what the video or song are about. This is another one I suggest checking out for yourself, at least checking out the song. If you're not an adult, you should probably not watch the video because again, there's boob in it, and that's fucking scary. Lastly, for non-YouTube content, I want to talk about, I guess, a creepypasta? Booth World Industries was a story posted to r/nosleep in 2013 about a fictitious phone number you can call to remodel someone, or, in other words, kill someone. Like a lot of creepypastas though, this story had something to go along with it to make it seem more believable. That being an actual, real phone number that you could call. Though, if you called it, you would just hear a stock scream sound effect. This story, despite being completely unbelievable, still scared me a lot as a kid, just because of its concept. Booth World Industries has a very strong concept, and the phone number being real helped it feel all the more plausible, even if just for a moment. There were a lot of creepypastas that scared me more than Booth World though, but that's a story for another time. For now, let's get back to talking about some weird YouTube videos. Shay St. John is another thing I somehow forgot to include last time, specifically the video hand thing. This video is fucking weird, man. I honestly have no idea how to even describe it. Seriously, what the hell do I say about this? Well, for starters, it did scare me quite a lot as a kid. Even though this video is kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie to you. Watching it again now, this video is funny in like a kind of creepy way. All of Shay St. John's videos are like this, having a weird blend of humor and horror, though I do think Hand Thing is one of the better videos. Let's talk about another comedic video series, albeit this one I found funny as a kid too, that being Clay World. This is a claymation series on YouTube, which features blue clay men who often die in gruesome ways. None of these videos are scary, really, but a few did creep me out as a kid, namely this one involving a swimming pool, and this one involving zombies. Again though, these videos were mostly funny to me as a kid, and honestly, they've held up well. A claymation channel that isn't funny though is Lee Hardcastle. I don't know how much I can show of this, but Lee Hardcastle is an animator specializing in claymation, though most of his work is horror. There's 3 videos in particular I want to talk about, though I'm only going to talk about them briefly. First, Hamster Hell. This is a video about a boy abusing a hamster until it dies. Honestly, I have nothing more I can say because that's basically the entire video. Next, the Simpsons couch gag, also known as You're Next. Despite the title of Simpsons couch gag, I don't think this was an actual couch gag, which would make sense given how graphic this one is. Seriously, I don't think I can show anything from this, even though it's just claymation. Homer gets his head blown off by a shotgun. That's all I can tell you. Okay, finally, we have T for toilets. This is one I really wanted to talk about, so I'll go a little more in depth. T for Toilet is part of a larger movie called ABCs of Death, and the short itself involves a young boy having a nightmare about his toilet coming to life and brutally killing his parents. Then when he wakes up, he goes to use the bathroom, gets scared, puts his head under the toilet seat for some reason, and then part of the toilet falls on his head and kills him. So, this is the short by Lee Hardcastle that I personally was traumatized by as a kid. Kids these days and their newfangled skibbity toilets. This is the real toilet horror. Honestly, watching Lee Hardcastle stuff again now, I actually quite like it. Yes, it's extremely graphic. So graphic that, again, I don't think I can show it, but it's incredibly well done, and the amount of time and effort it must take to make claymation this high quality has got to be massive. Lee Hardcastle is insanely talented. I cannot deny that. But I also cannot deny that his work is most definitely traumatizing to children. Thank God he puts 18+ warnings on most of his videos, and most of them are age restricted anyway.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Alright, 3 more quick things I want to talk about before we get to the big finale. First, hi Walter. I got a new girlfriend today. This is a horror skit, I guess, that shows this guy, Patrick, talking to his friend Walter about his new girlfriend. There's a slightly unnerving atmosphere to this video, even before the actual horror part comes in. And that aforementioned horror part comes in when Patrick shows us his new GF. As you might have already known or guessed, Patrick kidnapped a woman. The video ends with him walking into the room with her. As the footage cuts to black, I won't lie, Hi Walter is an excellent little horror video, and it unfortunately got tied up in a bunch of rumors about it being real. It is not. There was an entire investigation by police in 2016, and it was confirmed by both the police and the creators of the video that it's not real. But still, for that brief period of time, where it was still under investigation, it seemed far too plausible that Hi Walter could have been a real video of a kidnapping. And that thought was extremely creepy to me as a kid. Hell, it's creepy to me now. And you know what else is still a bit creepy to me now? This fucking thing. This is another one that I somehow missed last time. And honestly, like, do I even have to say more about this? You've probably seen the Little Baby's ice cream ad before, and if not, you're probably a baby and you shouldn't be watching this video. Anyway, this was a real ad from 2012, which featured an ice cream person eating themselves rather sensually. It shouldn't really be a surprise why this is still a bit creepy to me now, since it is a highly uncomfortable video. But like, why did they think this was gonna make them sell more ice cream? Are they stupid? I mean, I guess it worked. It got people to talk about the brand. Good ad actually, thumbs up. Last quick one before we move on, though I'm not entirely sure if this video I'm going to talk about is actually what I saw. The video in question is Peppa Pig and the Bacon. This is a very short animation about Peppa Pig becoming a cannibal and eating bacon, going so far as to kill her father and peel off her own skin. Now, I never really watched Peppa Pig as a kid, but I still stumbled across what I think is this video when I was young, and I remember it being so disturbing to me that I shut it off and watched like Minecraft Let's Plays or something instead. Now, the thing is, I don't know if this video I'm thinking of was Peppa Pig and the Bacon. See, I remember this happening around 2013, but according to the Newgrounds upload of the video, it was made in 2015. Now, it is entirely possible I'm just misremembering when I saw it, but there's aspects of the video that I remember that aren't present. One, I remember it being longer, and I remember it being far more crudely animated than it actually is. Two, I remember a scene where Peppa Pig had what I can only describe as sonic.exe eyes. And three, I remember it either not having voice acting or it being entirely in English. It is totally possible I made all that up. Maybe that was a nightmare I had or something. Honestly, it probably was. But on the chance that it wasn't, disregard everything I just said because I did not see this video as a kid. But again, I'm probably just misremembering. I'm an old man now. My memory isn't what it used to be. With that said, there's one final piece of internet content I want to talk about. It's a creepypasta that I've talked about once before, and it's easily the one that scared me the most as a kid, even though the story is complete trash. I'm talking about the one, the only. As I said before, both a moment ago and in my creepypasta video, sonic.exe used to terrify me. I used to have legitimate fear that sonic.exe was going to become real and get me if I didn't get to my room fast enough from the hallway. Every single time I would go to the bathroom at night, I would hear the Sonic 1 drowning music in my head when I was in the hallway, because I was scared that evil Sonic was gonna get me. I had nightmares over this stupid story. And you know the worst part? It's bad. It's so bad. I've talked about this before, but sonic.exe is one of the most terribly written creepypastas I've ever read. The main character, despite 1,000 reasons not to, plays a haunted Sonic game. And as soon as it starts getting weird and scary, instead of shutting it off and destroying the game, he keeps playing because he just loves Sonic too much. It's implied at the end that a bloody Sonic plushie kills him, even though it's just a fucking plushie. What the hell is it gonna do to you? Okay, I'm getting sidetracked. This segment is not about how bad sonic.exe is. I've already talked enough about that. This is about how much it scared me. You know what's funny? I'm pretty sure most of my fear wasn't even from the creepypasta. Which, like, okay, sure, the game's a little better, but still, I wasn't even scared by the source material. Oh, and I don't think it was even the game itself that scared me, but this image. I don't care how goofy this image is. It used to scare me so bad as a kid that to this day, I can still barely look at it. Ugh. Get it off the screen. Alright, now put the other scary image on. That's right. There was not one, not two, but 3 scary sonic.exe images that scared me as a kid. And they are all goofy as hell. And you know what? That's okay. That's what this video is all about. Goofy shit that scared me as a kid. I'm not ashamed to admit, sonic.exe scared me more than actually good creepypastas. I wasn't even a big Sonic fan when this scared me. It was just the sheer power of that one image that scared me so bad. The only creepypasta images that have ever come as close to being as scary to me are the ones for the Squidward one I can't say the name of, and Smile Dog. But I've at least gotten over my fear of those. I can at least look at those images now. Sonic.exe though, I mean, I've almost gotten over it, but I still haven't gotten over it. And that's okay. Sometimes dumb shit scares us as kids, and it sticks with us forever. And that's just part of life. All we can do is make fun of our past selves for being dumb little babies. And that, my friends, is going to be the end of this video. I hope you all enjoyed this look into more of the silly things that scared me as a kid. And I'd love to hear about what scared you as a kid, whether it be actual horror media or some silly stuff like a dragon puppet from a literal baby video. I'm thinking that next year, if I make another one of these, I might mix in some suggestions from you all, but I'm currently undecided on that. For now, I'm going to go back to making slightly shorter spooky videos, though I do have a longer one coming up for December. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and good night.